What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with Kevole and Dilly Vanilli, and we are here to break down the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, a team throughout the 2000s and even early in the 2010s that were super successful, although they only got one Super Bowl thanks to my team. But anyways, and that guy in particular. But yeah, the Colts are still a team that I always tend to root for because – even though I am a Patriots fan, because I do like Andrew Luck. And I do think that Andrew Luck can be a great quarterback in the NFL. And I don't know, there's just always something about the way the Colts play and just sort of now, I guess, the underdog role that the Colts are going to be playing in the NFL that I want to see them do well and be a successful team. But I think right now it's tough to say that the Colts are going to be that. You look at this roster, and it's highly skeptical to say the least. They do get Andrew Luck back, and all points are up because he looks great in camp, according to all reports. I've seen a few highlights where it looks like he's really spinning it out there, hitting T.Y. Hilton in stride. He's come a long way since like even a couple months ago where he was barely throwing a football. So, yeah, he's going to probably be a little bit rusty, but he's still a huge upgrade over most quarterbacks in the NFL. Guys, who do you think what do you think, I should say, of the Colts this year? And do you think that Andrew Luck is going to regain his form as the quarterback of the Colts?
Yeah, we can go first on this one.
Yeah, it's really tough to I think that this was one of my problems with this division is determining what happens with Andrew Luck. Because I think that this team is obviously going to be better with Andrew Luck because he is a great quarterback. We're not going to dispute that. I mean, it is, but he's going to have some rust, I think, that he's going to have to work off. But so let's look, I think, around. Let's take Andrew Luck out of the equation and just look at this team. T.Y. Hilton is a really strong receiver. I think a great receiver. Their offensive line is not bad. Eric Ebron, I think, is a guy that I think is getting a second chance in Indianapolis. Not great in Detroit. Really concerned about this running game. Marlon Mack, it doesn't excite me in any way. Their defense needs a lot of work, but I do like some things there. I like Malik Hooker. So there's some things to build on. I think in the long run, Frank Reich will probably be a better fit than Josh McDaniel. I'm not saying he's a better coach necessarily than Josh McDaniel, but I think he's going to do fine there. But this team just has had a history of some really bad drafts, some really bad acquisitions around Andrew Luck, that it's great to see Luck being back. I think it's great for the NFL. It's great for the city of Indianapolis. But to me, at the end of the day, I think that I think what will happen is they will cause a disruption in this division by winning some games that I think people won't expect them to win. But at the end of the day, I have them at 6-10, and I have them in last place. I just look around the talent of Andrew Luck right now, and I can't see it. They've got just a long way to go. And it's great to have a quarterback, but you've got to build the talent around it. It's just, they've drafted so terribly this decade, like just so terribly. If it wasn't for the Browns, we would be laughing more at the Colts. So I have them at 6-10.
And also the thing with the Colts is they've lucked into Andrew Luck. Yeah. So they've been able to have seasons where they probably shouldn't have been 7-9, but they were because of Andrew Luck, like we talked about with the Lions in a way. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, offensively, this is a very weird team to talk about in terms of record, production. I don't really know how to address this. And if my overall record is wrong, I can understand it more from this team than any other team. But I just have so many questions. Besides Andrew Luck entirely, look at the talent that is around him. That is the big thing, first off. T.Y. Hilton, good receiver. Even you could say great receiver. He had his down moments in 2017, but he's still very productive, especially for a third-round pick. You got to like him, and especially he's a good target for Andrew Luck. The other wide receivers on this team actually really questioned me. Ryan Grant coming from Washington. I have a lot of questions about like why they thought it was such a good idea to give him a contract for $5 million when he's had 985 receiving yards in the past 4 seasons. I don't really know where the production is from him, and I don't know if they're going to be like, yeah, this is our guy, our next go-to. Chester Rogers, Deon Cain. Deon Cain is a 6th-round draft pick. He's like their number 4 receiver on this team. So I have a lot of questions about that. Offensive line, I'm really glad they got Quentin Nelson as their left guard. They drafted him. I'm really glad they got that because there has been no protection for the quarterback from the Colts in the last couple of years, and a guy like Quentin Nelson's definitely going to help that out. Their tight end situation, Jack Doyle is okay. He can be decent, and Eric Ebron comes into this team. He's basically a bust in Detroit, but like Kev said, he could be getting a second chance. I'm not going to predict him, in the top 10 right now, but he could have some decent production if Andrew Luck wants to focus that way. Marlon Mack is your number 1 running back here in Indianapolis. I think I put them as the 3rd worst running group in NFL. I'm pretty sure, somewhere around there. It's not a very good group. We'll get back to Luck in a second. I think this is the worst defense in the NFL. There's like one name you could look at and be like, all right, that's a guy. And that's Malik Hooker, who was their freaking draft pick last year. So there's just not a lot of talent. That defensive line is probably the best thing they got going for them. But again, they just drafted another guy in the 2nd round to be their starting left defensive end. Their linebacker situation is pretty weak. Their cornerback situation is also very weak. Well, what do you see from here? Like, this defense is awful. I know people are going to try to defend it on here, but they're the worst defense in the league. So with that being said, it's not just about what Andrew Luck is to this team. It's what is surrounding him. And there's not a lot of talent to surround Andrew Luck with because the front office of the Colts is probably the worst in the league right now. They have not set up Andrew Luck to be successful, even if he was 100% healthy. And this team has got a lot of question marks for me. I don't think this is a very talented team. And with that being said, I'm going to put them at 4-12. That is the worst in their division. It's not the worst record in the league, but it's one of the worst records. And this team just has so many question marks that I know Andrew Luck could probably produce him to get a couple of more victories, but the team around him is not really strong enough for me to say, hey, this team is going to be 6-10 or 7-9, middling around average. I just don't like the production of this team and a lot of questions going forward. So 4-12, last in the AFC South.
Okay, so Dylan talked about the GM Chris Ballard, but really it's been the past of the Colts that's kind of put them in this situation. Because the past regime was sort of the GM that messed everything up, I should say. And usually with the Colts, they were going through that run where it was like they would pick an offensive player or like a receiver every year in the 1st round, or just positions they didn't need. And now I think Chris Ballard is trying to take steps forward, and I think he's doing a decent job. I really like the draft they had this year. Addressing the offensive line with Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith, getting Deon Cain late, Kamiko Toure I like from Rutgers. I think they got a lot of decent players in this draft. Tyquan Lewis, they had a really deep draft with some good players that I liked. So we'll see how that young talent influences this team in the future. But I think that just right now, this team, like these guys said, just not a ton of household names, not a ton of names that you really recognize across the NFL or players that really I think are great. I mean, I think the offensive line is going to be very much improved this year, thanks to Quentin Nelson, thanks to Braden Smith. I think those 2 players will help out. And Matt Slauson's not bad if he starts over Braden Smith. Ryan Kelly at center is pretty good if he can stay on the field. And Anthony Costanzo's been pretty solid at left tackle, been really the only guy that's been there for a while. At wide receiver, they did sort of take a hit over the past couple of years, but I feel like it's relatively the same unit because Dante Moncrief has been injured most of his career. So they replace him with Ryan Grant, who's a different receiver. He's kind of a smaller, quicker guy as opposed to a bigger body. But Deon Cain is a rookie, apparently looking pretty good in camp. They still have Chester Rogers. So we'll see what happens at wide receiver. I'm sure there's a bit of a camp battle going on there to sort it all out. But you have T.Y. Hilton, who's the centerpiece of your offense that you want to get the ball to. And Luck loves that guy, and they have a great connection. And I think Frank Reich is really going to help out the offensive side of the ball. We saw what he did in Philly, what he was influenced and it influenced the Philadelphia Eagles offense to do. So we'll see if he brings that to the Colts. The tight ends are solid. I like Jack Doyle a lot. Ebron is a little overrated in my mind, but he's fine, especially as a number 2. And then you have Brissett backing up Luck in case anything goes wrong. And I think that's probably one of the best backups in the NFL. Marlon Mack, I think, is going to be their running back that they go with for most of the time. I think he's probably the most talented guy on their roster. But look out for those rookies. They might, catch a few footballs, get in there and maybe even surprise some people. And if they can get a solid run game this year, then this team can win more games than I think. Defensively, Jabal Sheard was really good last year, but of course he's on the Colts, so it doesn't really get him much respect for that. As I brought up, Teray was one of their higher picks in the draft. I think he's going to be a good pass rusher. On their depth chart right now, it says they're going to start him, but I don't really see him being a full-time starter. I see him more as a pass rusher at this point. And the guys brought up, the linebacking core is probably the worst in the league. And secondary is arguably the worst as well. They let go of their best corner last year, Melvin. Malik Hooker, like Dylan brought up, is probably the only guy that anyone really knows. So that being said, Kenny Moore is one of their starting corners. I don't know. Adam Vinatieri is still kicking the ball, but I'm going to go with 4-12 because they have Andrew Luck, and I think they're going to sneak out a couple victories that people don't expect, and they're going to be competitive like they were last year. But I just think their defense might have gotten even worse, and their offense, I think, improved a lot. But I just don't know. I don't know how much the coaching change is going to impact them. Maybe it's going to be very positive. Who knows? I do want to say, though, just a quick shout out to Ray Ventrone, who used to play for the Patriots, special teams player, is now their special teams coach. And a thing about the Colts, as we saw a couple years ago, they had probably the worst special teams call of all time against my Patriots. I think their special teams could be kind of sneaky because they're going to get some of that Patriot influence into their special teams, which, of course, Belichick has been known for. So I just think the Colts, they have some promise in the future. They have some pieces I like. They had a good draft. I'm saying a lot of positives, but overall, this is just to make up for the fact that they really don't have a lot of talent throughout the roster. And I think this coach, Frank Reich, and the coaching staff in general, and Andrew Luck are going to have to do a lot to get this team over the hump and into winning territory, into even around 8-8 territory. So I think it's 4-12 because of the tough division, because of the schedule. And I just don't see it happening for the Colts this year, but maybe in the future because I think they have some promising young players. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video from Mitch, Dylan, and Kevole. It's the Colts preview for 2018. If you enjoy, hit the like button, subscribe, and peace out.